I'm Amber Tresca, and this is About IBD. I'm a medical writer and patient educator who lives with a J-pouch due to ulcerative colitis. It's my mission to educate people living with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis about their disease and to bring awareness to the patient journey. Welcome to episode 168. IBD doesn't discriminate. It affects people of all ethnicities, socioeconomic groups, and gender identities. Many aspects of general IBD are still understudied, which means that there are not always good resources or information available for people who are part of historically underrepresented groups. My guest is Condray. Cass is an IBD patient and researcher. His research is on the impacts of bathroom bans on transgender people who live with a form of IBD. He's passionate about increasing patient care outcomes and awareness because resources and tools for sexual and gender minorities who live with an IBD are difficult to find. As a patient leader, Cass found himself answering questions from the Pride community because there were so few answers available. He created prideandpoop.com as a centralized resource for LGBTQIA+ members of the IBD community. One programming note, we do briefly discuss sexuality as it relates to IBD, in case you want to put on some headphones while listening or take a look at the transcript. Okay, on to the show. Cass, thank you so much for coming on About IBD.
Happy to be here.
Oh, great. So first, I want to start with an introduction so our listeners get a little preview of who Cass is. So would you introduce yourself to us?
So, hi, everybody. My name is Cass. I work in IBD research, but I also have IBD. And my main interests are, investigating like social determinants of health, particularly like disparities, IBD and like the LGBTQ community, like how that impacts like quality of life and like healthcare outcomes. And my current work focuses on bathroom access and like the impacts associated with that. And I currently live in Norman, Oklahoma. I'm a senior at the University of Oklahoma. I'm a microbiology major. So that's completely different from the other research that I do.
So you have your fingers in a lot of different pies, I think is where we're netting out.
I dabble in a lot of science.
Yes, I love that. I love it. And the research that you do is so needed. And I also think it is super impressive that you are doing this work and that you are in this profession that's so demanding, and yet you are living with the stupid IBD and everything that it brings. So I wonder if you would take a few minutes to tell us about like when were you diagnosed, what that was like, and then where you are now with your IBD.
Sure. So I was diagnosed in middle school, actually. I don't even, that was so long ago. I think like 2012. I'm like, I don't even think of the years because it makes me feel old.
Yes.
And I'm like 23. I don't even know why it makes me feel old. I'm like,
Cass,
I'm elderly.
wait, hold on. I'm 51. So, okay, don't even. All right.
I'm aging, like gray hair.
But still, yes, middle school was a long time ago. Yes.
So eons ago in middle school, when the dinosaurs were roaming, I was having a lot of bloody stools. Like I just constantly, just sometimes just all blood. And this was going on for about 2 years.
Wow.
And I was really, really good at hiding it. Actually, like nobody knew. I didn't tell anybody, and I made sure to keep it a secret. Which do not do that ever. I mean,
yeah,
I know now not to do that. But part of that was because I was scared, I guess, because around that time, my mother had passed away from peptic ulcer disease. We think she might have had Crohn's disease. She actually never felt comfortable going to the doctor for these gastrointestinal issues because of like the treatment that she had experienced in the past. So she had just lived with it and that excruciating pain. And I had watched her and help take care of her in those last years. And when I saw myself pooping extreme amounts of blood, I first told myself, oh, it's just lactose intolerance. Like, it should be fine. I'm not lactose intolerant at all. I don't even know where I got that idea from.
I think it was a big thing at the time.
diagnosis-
It was probably discussed a lot at the time.
Yeah. Everybody was like, oh, just cut out milk.
Yeah.
I'm not even lactose intolerant. I don't even know where that idea came from. I can eat cheese. Then one day, I forgot to flush the toilet, and it looked like I just pooped glass or something. It looked like a murder scene. It was very bad. And my dad saw it, and he understandably was like, very concerned. And we went to my pediatrician, had a referral to pediatric GI, had a scope, and then diagnosis of ulcerative colitis. There wasn't really any information that was given to me or my parents really about what ulcerative colitis was. It was explained as more of like it's your diet, like just eat differently, blah blah blah.
Right.
I had a lot of allergic reactions to medications I was prescribed, which was fun. Going through step therapy all throughout childhood, to find a medication that wouldn't send me into anaphylaxis. I was essentially in a flare all throughout high school and middle school. I actually don't know. I was looking through my records. I don't know if I ever had a CRP under 400. I just, but it was okay. I survived. And that was until 2020, when I had a cardiac arrest caused by a rare genetic heart condition that I didn't find out until 3 years later. Because of that, when I was in a coma, because of that cardiac arrest, I was taken off of all IBD medications. I was only on one, but my IBD was very uncontrolled, and I was in a severe flare as a result. I had an ileus, pancolitis, the whole 9 yards. I was then switched to biologics, which were great, fixed everything up. But the heart condition does complicate things because I might be the only person in the world has IBD, ARVC, LGBTQ, all the acronyms. So I guess growing up in Oklahoma, being a teenager, going through all the changes that a teenager goes through with IBD, but also being part of the LGBT community and figuring all of that out and going through those experiences. It was hard. Being on 80 milligrams of prednisone for months at a time when you have a crush is sucks. My IBD is much better controlled than it was 4 years ago, and I'm able to do a lot more. I mean, there's still good days and bad days, but it definitely is something that there's really far-reaching and considerable impacts when you have those multiple intersecting identities.
Yeah, for sure. And you experienced severe trauma. I think it's okay to just name that. And a couple of things standing out from your story is that the reason why your IBD was discovered by an adult was in forgetting to flush the toilet. And when I tell you how common that is, it's really it should be studied.
Yeah.
Because I've heard from so many people that they were hiding it, not hiding. I don't know how to really contextualize that, necessarily, but that something was happening with them. They weren't able to discuss it with anyone, and then that's how it was discovered.
Yeah.
Is just it's really a wild thing. Although I think you were dealing with it for a lot longer than a lot of people. I can't imagine what your colon looked like at that point.
No, I was we were fighting demons in there. It was whoa. There was, we're oh. I mean,
yeah.
that was a little more than lactose intolerance.
A little more than lactose intolerance. Yeah.
I mean, but like if you're like 8 years old, 10 years old, you put blood, you either think like, oh no, like I'm scared.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of kids, when they're scared, they have like a few responses: curl up in a ball and don't tell
Mm-hmm.
anybody,
Mm-hmm.
or like have a defensive mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I didn't. I curled up. I was like, I'm scared, and I tried to make excuses. I was like, oh, lactose intolerance, blah blah blah. It didn't obviously it wasn't
Which
didn't
none
make
of that
sense.
was true. Yeah, but as a child, you didn't know. Up next, how a lack of research impacts sexual and gender minorities. I also found it interesting that you said, I survived. And I find that interesting because it's, for so many of us with IBD, that's kind of our benchmark.
Yeah.
We go, well, I lived through it and I'm here to tell the tale and it's all fine. Like, that's how we talk about things. And it's such a wild way to think about the situation.
Yeah. I mean, I was dead. There's so many things that I'm like, well, I'm living. I guess it could be worse.
Yeah, I was recently, the last time, I think I was in DC, and I think I, had gone to like leave my luggage with the baggage folks or whatever it was. And I remember walking up to the man at the counter and saying, "Good morning, how are you?" And he said, "I'm alive and grateful." And no pause. He just goes, "I'm alive and grateful." And I was like, you know what? That taught me something. I was like, I'm taking that forward with me.
And like, I mean, after like literally like dying, I'm like, I can't do, like, there's some things I can't do, I guess, like, because of, there's something like things I'm limited in. But I just take it day by day and I'm like, you know what? I'm alive. I can do this. Some things may suck extraordinarily, disproportionately. They may be disproportionately bad, or harder for me than somebody else. But there's people, I mean, like my mom isn't alive because of like negligence and I'm like, I guess it could be worse. It's pretty bad, but I was dead one time. I guess it could be worse.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I survived. I've survived this long. Hopefully I survive longer.
Agreed. The research that you do plays into all of this, your life experiences, and then, wanting to thrive. I think it's okay to say that we all want to thrive and not just survive. And we know there's a lack of research about so many aspects of IBD. And there's more research being done now than, for instance, when I was diagnosed. So that's very hopeful. But I work in other disease states sometimes other than IBD, and I notice the disparity, that there are other disease states that have much more research, and that's, money, all of that going into understanding how to better manage them. So, and within the IBD community, already under-researched is the LGBTQIA+ community, under-researched in an already under-researched disease state. I'm going to ask you, Cass, why do you think that is such a big problem?
For me, I'm like, oh, well, it's obvious. But for people who aren't, IBD researchers, or who aren't IBD researchers interested in like sexual and gender minorities, which is an easier way to say LGBTQI+.
Yes.
It impacts, our like the quality of life and our healthcare outcomes. So, like, for example, like a cisgender heterosexual female with IBD is going to have different healthcare needs, for example, than like a gay man with IBD, or like a transgender woman with IBD or like a gay transgender man with IBD.
Mm-hmm.
So like when there's no research or data about like the healthcare outcomes or like the healthcare interventions that apply to these different patient populations, doctors are either left guessing or they don't know, or like they just throw up their hands and like, oh, I can't help you.
Yeah.
They make uneducated guesses, and that leads to bad outcomes for people like us. For example, like if you're like a transgender person with IBD and you want to take gender affirming hormone therapy,
Mm-hmm.
but your IBD doctor has no idea like if that will have any impact on your let's say your LFT levels are high or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like then you're just left guessing. And then there's like the research about like psychosocial impacts,
Mm-hmm.
which are very important. And if we just like ignore like, oh my gosh, and treat everybody like the same as this homogenous IBD, I guess, patient population,
Mm-hmm.
we ignore the specific needs of these patients, and then people get left behind and maybe don't get the help they might need. So, and then there's like also something to be said about like, I don't know, seeing representation.
Yeah.
So like being able to like see yourself or like seeing yourself in like research or and seeing that somebody cares about people like you
Mm-hmm.
is it seems not as important as the other reasons why increasing this research is great. And it obviously doesn't have like real world like as much quantitative impacts and like
Mm-hmm.
real world impacts, but to be able to like know that there are people like there are doctors who treat IBD who maybe are like you, like who are part of the LGBTQ community, or who are just want to make like a concerted effort to help people like you or make your life better. It makes you feel like more included. It's important. It's for like people who are often left out of these conversations.
Yeah. And I think at the heart of it too is maybe is some hope,
Mhm. Yeah.
some hope, which, in the IBD community at large, of course, but then also
Mhm.
some hope that in the patient population that you're in, that things can improve and you can get
Mhm.
some answers because wow, is there anything worse than going into your doctor and they're like, well, I don't have any other patients that are like you.
Yeah.
And with what you've got going on, I don't know how to manage your IBD. Like,
Yeah.
that's really very scary.
Yeah. Or like when they open the door, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to help you.
Oh,
I'm like, okay.
right.
And then to be able to know that there are people who will make an effort, even if they don't have like the answers right now to be
Yeah.
able to help you, they want to find a way. It's just such a common theme.
Mhm.
I'm not like in people with IBD and especially in LGBTQ people with IBD, it's so common to see people who are like, I just don't go to the doctor anymore because I don't feel like they listen. I don't feel like they know anything about my identity. I feel like they don't care.
Yeah. We don't want that. That's
Yeah.
really awful to feel that way.
Yeah.
So, all right. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Mhm.
So, asking you, Cass, what kind of research would you like to be done on IBD that would help the LGBTQIA community?
So, I mean, there's a billion things.
It's a giant
like where do I
question.
start? But I think definitely like the psychosocial impacts of not only things like bathroom bans and
Mm-hmm.
like all of that, because that's a whole thing. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But the IBD itself, if you have perianal disease or if you have like perianal fistula or perianal abscesses as a result of your IBD, and you are an LGBTQ person who prefers to engage in interceptive intercourse, like that really can have a massive impact on your like mental health and quality of life.
Yeah.
And like same with like if you have to have like an IPAA or like the Barbie butt or Ken butt, I believe they call it.
Yes.
Like just like the things like that. And like or an ostomy. All of the time people are like, I don't think I will like should ever have sex again. I have an ostomy. Like I've like and things like that. Like I don't feel comfortable. And when your butt has like a cyst on it, you're like, that I mean, it's understandable to feel like uncomfortable, like sad or so I think that is something that isn't addressed. I think there's some research on it, but not enough. And it's something that is really impactful and important. I think that is something that I would definitely prioritize, or I think would be important. And then again, the people who think that because they have IBD, they can never have sex again. Like so many, I feel like every day I have to tell people, I don't know who is telling them, if it's their doctors.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is their doctors that because they have IBD, they cannot have sex.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, I guess research about how that happens and interventions to prevent that. Or I guess sex education, IBD.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's safe measures and like, you don't want to, go wild. I'm never like, I'm like, you said, like, don't like, I'm like, never like,
yeah, I mean, I think you have to acknowledge the IBD. The IBD exists and it might impact your sex life. So, but here's a solution that we can get to so that you can have a better quality of life.
There's a happy medium.
Yes.
Well, right? I'm like, we don't like, we don't have to be like, but we aren't, you don't have to be like celibate because you have IBD. If you want to be, that's totally fine. But if you are somebody that wants to have sex and you think that because you just got diagnosed with IBD, that you are banished forever, that impacts your like mental health. You're like, oh my gosh. You're like, damn. Like, so I think that would be important. And obviously increased research about like gender affirming hormone therapy across the United States. There's lots of legislation that's curtailing like gender affirming hormone therapy, and it might be too intersectional because we are barely getting research about the positive impacts of or about the impacts of gender affirming hormone therapy on IBD. So I think research about the impacts of curtailing gender affirming hormone therapy on people with IBD might be too niche.
Yeah.
There might be like, we might be picking from a very small population.
Right.
But I think research on gender affirming hormone therapy on different IBD like therapies, because Entyvio is not the same as Stelara, as methotrexate, as et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I think that would be important because we have that research for other medication interactions, but we don't have it for hormone therapies. So I think that would be more research about that sort of quality of life and like sexual and mental health sort of impacts of IBD. But I guess at the end of the day, there's a parity in the research surrounding LGBTQ people with IBD compared to their cisgender and heterosexual patients with IBD. And that leads to misinformed patient care and worse outcomes for people like us. So.
Yeah. A lot of wonderful research topic ideas there that hopefully there's somebody listening who has some...
I'm like, I'll drop my email
who has the ability.
Just reach out to me. We'd love to collaborate. I have some personal experience.
Right.
I live in Oklahoma. Hit me up. Thank you.
So, but that's only part of this situation, though, because you've described how there is some distrust in the Pride community when it comes to working with healthcare professionals. And that's even just, going to the doctor. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about research, which is
Yeah.
a whole other situation. So if researchers do want to engage with the LGBTQ community and fill some of those research gaps, how can they go about that?
Sure. I mean, I think just treat us like everybody else, or like you would want to be treated. And remember that we're not a homogenous community. So somebody like a cisgender female who identifies as a lesbian is going to be different than a transgender like male who identifies as like homosexual. Like we have different experiences and different ways we go about life. Like it's a blanket, like it's a group term, but there's so many vast differences
Yes.
within the community. And I think just remembering that everybody has, and even within those individual identities, everybody has a really unique experience with both their identity and both with IBD and with healthcare. So some people have had a great experience with healthcare, and that's awesome. I'm really we're very happy for them. And some people have had a terrible experience with healthcare. And I know people who just don't want to go to the doctor. Like they have IBD, they have like severe Crohn's, and because of how they've been treated, based on their identity, they won't go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't fault them. Like I get it. Like especially in places like Oklahoma and Texas, it can be extremely hard to find somebody that treats you with respect. So I just understanding the historical background of and the context in which you approach people is really important, and especially transgender patients. There's a particularly troubling history with like research and medicine. So it's understandable for like patients you approach to be apprehensive. So I think just understanding like these like historical injustices and the current like situation, and just being respectful and understanding if somebody says no.
Yeah.
And understanding why that is, because that might be just as important for your research as somebody saying yes, honestly.
Wow. No, that's a very important point in engaging people in research, because it's not always about what you want to learn in the process of putting together a research study and trying to get a certain outcome out of it. You may actually find that the research goes in a different direction because we're dealing with humans.
I'm like, if you have an experiment that goes like exactly the way you want, whether it be in cell biology, chemistry, or like applied research with humans, something is wrong. Like no research should ever go exactly right. I actually I don't think I've ever had an experiment go exactly how I planned. If it did, something has gone horribly wrong. and I need to
do it again.
I'm like, I need to check something. So call the CDC.
Coming up, what the future holds for pride and poop. All right, Cass, you're out here, you're doing the work, and you have also developed a website. I love the name of your website. It's called Pride and Poop. Aside from the obvious, or maybe the obvious, what made you start your website?
There's two reasons. Part of it is like a little bit selfish. I started partially for myself because I had a question and I was like, I Googled it and I couldn't find an answer. And then I would get on, social medias as you do. And I would see so many questions that were LGBTQ people with IBD asking questions like, or just posting like, oh my God, I was just diagnosed with Crohn's, I'm gay, things like that, or asking like what they can do, or and then asking just questions that were heartbreaking at the same time. And then when you Google it, you're like, oh my God, there are no resources. There's nobody answering these questions that isn't extremely terrible. Like, I think if you Google gay men and IBD, you get a paper that says homosexual men are twice as likely to have IBD. So I'm like, that, if that's what you're Googling when you Google, I'm gay and I have IBD, you're going to be like, oh, okay, so this is my fault.
This is my fault.
It's half the time. And that's when I was diagnosed, I was like, is this my fault? And that's half of the posts are like, I'm gay and I was just diagnosed with IBD. Is this my fault?
Oh, boy.
And it's so, I'm like, oh my God, no. It breaks my heart every single time because they're like profusely apologetic for asking questions that nobody should be sorry for asking. Just like, so I was like, I'll make this to like help answer, I guess, some of these questions, because it came to the point where then people were asking me, and I was like, okay, I'm not a doctor. I just kind of know some things. So I created that website, and I sort of pieced together what I could think of. So I started from, like safe sex. When you go to the doctor, like what to do at your first appointment, what to expect at your first appointment, resources for like people like us, places to find a supportive doctor, and stuff like that. And that was something that obviously like I never had growing up. So it's kind of why I made it, because I was like, I wanted to make something that like one would help people because, obviously, and to like help fill these gaps and like to like make something that when I was 15 in high school and like wishing I wasn't LGBTQ, wishing I didn't have IBD, but because it is hard. The combination of these two things, like these three things, I guess, like the heart and all of that, does make things harder. So I think making that was a way to help other people, but also
helping yourself.
Yeah, I'm like, if I say heal my inner child, I'm like, it's corny, but I was born on the cob. That was really funny.
I think that's valid, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you yourself had an issue that needed to be solved, and then you saw how many other people also had an issue that needed to be solved. They're not exactly the same, but they're in the same neighborhood at least. And so, you took action to be the person that you would have looked for when you were 15 years old.
Yeah.
So,
and like, I mean, I think it's really important for other LGBTQ people with IBD to feel seen.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think there was anybody else like me.
Yeah.
Ever. Until like I went to DDW and I was like, oh my God, there's other people. So I think like there's a really important aspect of feeling seen. Every time I'm like I see the impacts, like positive impacts for representation for like other people. I'm like, and I know representation is good. Like I know it. Like I know it is a fact. But like every time I'm like, oh my God. When it happens to me, I'm like, oh wow, that was nice. So like it does improve how you feel about yourself. To see representation of people like you, and that I know it does get better. Even if it is like hard at the time.
Yeah, 100%. And all right, I was on your website, of course, in preparation for speaking to you today. And listeners already know that I very much enjoy practical advice. I like to end things with, okay, we've pointed out the problem, but where
Hmm.
is the solution? So I want to ask you, how do we help the new IBD patient that's a member of the LGBTQIA community? What are your tips to keep in mind? Because we want them to go to that first appointment with the
Yeah.
gastroenterologist. So how do we help them through this?
I think one of the most important things, and it's definitely under recognized, is community. Whether it's just like friends or like some random person on social media. I mean, I know social media is bad in excess, but just reaching out to somebody who is also LGBTQ and it has IBD, and telling them, hey, like I'm about to go to my first appointment, and having them there, like over the phone, like or Snapchat, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and like being able to walk through that with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And have that support, because like this is not a disease you want to go through alone.
No.
Like even like if you aren't in the pride community,
Mm-hmm.
and it's harder if you are LGBTQ. So I think just like having a friend, if you can't bring them with you, bring them with you over the phone or like text or whatever. And then like something I try to do, and I always forget to do it, but like I write down like my chief complaint, like if it's like my tummy hurts or like I'm pooping blood for 2 years. I write that down. I'm like, no, I'm like, maybe we should talk about that. And I need to be a better advocate for myself. I'd say I'm the worst person about this, but like if they try and write you off, if they say, oh, probably just anxiety, probably
Yeah.
just stress,
Yeah.
which if you're peeing blood or if you're pooping blood, it's probably not stress. Not. I'm not a doctor. I
But
can't give you blood, but it's if there's blood coming out of your body, I wouldn't take you're just anxious as an answer.
mm-hmm.
You don't have to take that as an answer. Don't be afraid to seek like a second opinion or go to a place that you do feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't feel like affirmed or heard, comfortable in your healthcare like interaction, it's not going to be effective in any way. Like you're not going to feel comfortable going there, but you're probably also not going to get effective treatment.
Mm-hmm.
It can be really hard to find that
Yeah.
in some places. So, I mean, try not to give up. Easier said than done. And again, it's so corny, but I was born on the cob, but it does get better. I mean, one day, like your IBD won't be as bad.
That's totally true. I think at the heart of it, that's always something to remember. One day, your IBD will not be as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Especially if you can find effective care, which is not easy to find.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most of us in any capacity, but especially in the pride community, do have to work towards getting the care that we need and asserting that no, it is not lactose intolerance. It is not something I ate. It is not because I'm stressed out. It is something else and I need more care. So,
yeah, obviously not IBD, but like my heart condition.
Yeah.
It's a genetic heart condition. That is like cardiac arrest and arrhythmias are caused by exercise. For years, it was blamed on me. Like it was blamed on like my gender identity. And they did so many STD tests. They never did
gosh.
any. When I went somewhere that like I felt hurt, like affirmed all that, they're like, yeah, you have a genetic heart condition. And I was like, oh, okay. Oops. Like, it's when I'm seen, like when you're seen as a whole person, not as just, oh, you're just having chest pains because you're anxious, not because you're having arrhythmias. There's something to be said about finding a provider that is, I don't know, accepting.
Okay, I'm going to ask you now about what your future goals are. It's a question that I always hate, but but what do you hope to achieve? And not that you have to do anything else. You put Pride and Poop together, and it's a great resource. But what do you hope for your website?
I mean, I just hope, like, if it helps one person, like, that's all I want. If it can make one person feel less alone or isolated in their IBD, or answer their questions. Because again, when you Google, you either get a bunch of Reddit threads or like papers that are like, if you're gay, you're going to get IBD. So I think I just wanted to answer their questions, and make them feel heard and seen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess in like a broader term, like my future, like long-term goals, like I just want to, again, help people with IBD, like, and, obviously like outside of the IBD community. And like I do obviously have like a passion, I guess, people and like gastroenterology, like in that affects like marginalized communities. So I think just if I can like increase the quality of care that people can receive, that would be nice. But just being able to make life better for people like us, or would be my main goal. I'm super lucky to work with the people I do, and have incredible mentors and people that I looked up to. And like what I said earlier about representation, like the first time I read a paper, I was still like working in a microbiology lab. The first time I read a paper that had mentioned like the LGBT community and IBD, I was like, oh my God, not to be, corny, but I was like, this is like kind of like changed things for me. That was like when I switched from doing bench research to doing what I do now. I want to continue doing that. I'm lucky to do what I do and work with the people I do and have the mentors and friends in the IBD and IBD research community that I do. Hopefully I get to have a long, long life doing that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm just going to put out there, I would like to see you get some funding. I'm just going to come out right out and say it. I would like to see you get some funding.
I love that. I don't mind some funding.
Because
always appreciated.
Yeah, because you're providing valuable resources and great tips from yourself and your own personal experience, and then what you've learned and working with the people in the community. But also, what I'm taking from what you were just saying was that it can also be inspirational. And if people with IBD who are part of the Pride community are thinking that so many avenues are closed off to them, that seeing your website could inspire them to go into research, to start doing the research that we're talking about that we want to see. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen there.
Yeah. There's so many times that I was like, I can't find any research on this, so I'll just do it myself, know? And like, you can't be, and there's something to be said about representation, right? Like, you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
But
for sure,
there's times where I was like, I don't see it. I'll do it. I'll create the research because there's a gap. I'll fill it. And there's so many people in IBD research that were inspired to do IBD research because of their own experiences with IBD.
If patients might not know that, but we know that to be true from working with the people that we work with and going to like big medical meetings and hearing the stories of the people that are in the space. So I think that's valid. I think that's really valid. After the break, Cass tells us what there is to do in Oklahoma. Cass, I want to, we got into some heavy topics. It's necessary to talk about these things. I really appreciate your willingness to do so. I want to know a little bit more about you, though. So, what do you do out in Oklahoma for fun? What kind of hobbies? What kind of things do you get up to?
Like fun.
What's that?
I go to school. I really just I like to read. So in Oklahoma, there's not a lot to do here. If I'm gonna be honest. There's like some cows, I guess. I mean, I love to go get food with my friends. We got ramen a few weeks ago. There's just like, but I really I like going outside. I try to touch grass occasionally. I like music. Listening. I cannot make music. I have a miniature schnauzer. He's my dog. He's blind. He has a heart murmur. He's invincible. He got hit by a motorcycle. He just walked it off.
Oh my gosh.
Gosh, I love him. He ate a bunch of chocolate. We took him to the vet the first time, but like every time he just loves to eat trash. Like my dad feeds him grapes, and I was like, "Oh my god, you cannot feed him grapes!" And he was like, "He loves them," and he's fine. It's weird. Dog's invincible. So yeah, that's my dog. Love him. His name's Bear. Oh, I like to draw. I forget about that. I guess I was kind of good. I won some awards for that in high school, so I guess I was kind of good. I did AP Art my senior year and got a 5 on it.
Wow.
After never doing anything with art, never took an art class. But I also, I'm realizing I'm really boring in my hobbies. Like I'm really nerdy. I like reading, I like writing. My dog is okay, and I like coffee.
Yeah. Well, listen, I can get on board with all of those hobbies because they're just about the same for me, except that I have cats and not a dog. But knowing what I know now, as I said on a recent episode, I would have gotten a dog had I known that it's one of those things that there's research showing.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I'm like, protective. Hey, obviously didn't work for me. I've had, I grew up with hunting dogs. Like my grandparents have beagles. I've had dogs my whole life.
Yeah.
Still turned out this way. So it doesn't always work.
It doesn't always work, But hey, why not give it a chance? And then also you have a great friend in the process. So win-win.
Yeah.
All right, Cass, let's tell our listeners where they can find you online so they can follow your work and where they can find Pride and Poop, which I think is just prideandpoop.com.
Yeah. And I think it's just, so I don't know if the domain name is LGBT IBD or Pride and Poop, but if you Google Pride and Poop, it will come up.
Cool.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Google Scholar. And most of the time, I'm the only person in the world, I think, with the name Cass Condray. So if you just type that in, you'll find me.
That's good. A unique name is super, super helpful.
Yeah, nobody can ever pronounce it, but which is weird. I'm like, it's fairly phonetic. I'm like, but when my dad goes through the drive-thru or something, he'll give them a fake first name. And I was like, that's not your name. And he was like, no, I'm tired of getting called Gary or something, just the weirdest thing. So.
Well, doesn't hurt anything and makes his life a little easier. So there you go.
But it's funny. So.
That is funny. Okay, Cass, thank you so much for agreeing to put this episode together with me and for sharing all of your hard-won information and resources. And I really look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you.
Hey, super listener. Thanks to Cass for working with me to create this episode and for the work he's doing to support the LGBTQ plus community. As he described, there's still so much more to be done. You can find information, resources, and tools on prideandpoop.com. As always, links to a written transcript, everyone's social media handles, and more information on the topics we discussed is in the show notes and on my episode 168 page on aboutibd.com. If you are changing your relationship to social media, you may want to sign up for my email newsletter. If you go to aboutibd.com, you'll see a pop-up asking you to subscribe, or you can head to aibdnewsletter.aboutibd.com to sign up. You only need an email address. I will never share your information, and it is free to access. Thanks for listening, and remember, until next time, I want you to know more about IBD. About IBD is a production of Mal and Tal Enterprises. It is edited, written, produced, and directed by me, Amber Tresca. Mix and sound design is by Mac Cooney. Theme music is from Cooney Studio.